The chamber of 10,000 stars had never known silence like this. Representatives from across the galaxy sat frozen in their seats. Beings of light and shadow, creatures of metal and flesh, entities that existed in multiple dimensions at once, all of them staring at the central platform where no one had ever dared to stand. Uninvited. A human stood there now. He was unremarkable by human standards. Average height, gray hair, a simple dark uniform with no medals or decorations. His name was Director Marcus Webb, and he had just done something that no species had accomplished in the Council's 800-million-year history. He had walked in without permission. The Supreme Arbiter, a being of pure crystalline energy named Voreth, finally found words. You were not summoned, human. You were not invited. How did you pass through our security barriers? Marcus Webb looked up at the towering alien with an expression of mild curiosity. We walked through them. They were not particularly difficult. A ripple of shock passed through the chamber. The security barriers of the Council headquarters had been designed by the most advanced species in existence. They had never been breached. They were considered unbreakable. Impossible, Voreth declared. The barriers were constructed by the architects themselves. No technology in this galaxy can penetrate them. You are correct, Marcus said calmly. No technology in this galaxy can penetrate them. We did not use technology from this galaxy. The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus reached into his pocket and withdrew a small device. Every weapon in the chamber immediately targeted him. He ignored them completely. 143 years ago, he began, your survey division sent a greeting to our world. A standard message offering membership in your hegemonic council. Protection, guidance, a place among the stars. He pressed a button on the device. A holographic display appeared above his head, showing the original transmission. We analyzed this message carefully, very carefully, and we discovered something interesting. The display changed, showing linguistic breakdowns, hidden code sequences, embedded commands. Your greeting was not a greeting. It was a test, a probe, designed to evaluate our psychological vulnerabilities, our social structures, our potential for resistance. His voice remained perfectly level. The protection you offered was actually a form of containment. The guidance was behavioral modification. And the place among the stars was a carefully designed cage. Voreth's crystalline form flickered with agitation. You misunderstand our intentions. The Council exists to maintain peace and order throughout the galaxy. The Council exists to maintain control, Marcus corrected. We have studied your history extensively. Every species that accepts your invitation is gradually absorbed into your systems. Their development is limited to approved pathways. Their population growth is managed. Their technology is restricted to prevent them from ever becoming a threat to established powers. He looked around the vast chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from hundreds of worlds. You do not offer friendship. You offer subjugation wrapped in comfortable words. The High Admiral of the Valdorian Empire rose from his seat. His species had been the military arm of the Council for 60,000 years. You speak boldly for a species that barely survived its own infancy. Earth has no fleet, no defenses, no allies. What do you hope to accomplish by insulting powers that could destroy your world with a thought? Marcus smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Allow me to show you. He pressed another button on his device. The holographic display expanded to show Earth's solar system. The assembled representatives saw what they expected to see: a small blue world, a handful of primitive satellites. Nothing of consequence. Then the display changed. Structures began appearing throughout the solar system. Defense platforms around every planet. Shipyards in the asteroid belt. Weapons arrays orbiting the sun itself. Thousands upon thousands of installations, all of them previously invisible to Council sensors. "We have been building since the day we received your message," Marcus said. "In secret. Using technology we developed independently, and technology we acquired from sources you do not know about." The Valdorian High Admiral leaned forward. "Acquired? From whom?" "From the 17 Council vessels that have disappeared in our region of space over the past century. We captured them. We studied them. We learned from them." Marcus paused. "And we improved upon what we learned." The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted questions and demands. Security forces moved toward the central platform. Weapons powered up throughout the room. Marcus did not move. "Before you attempt anything regrettable," he said, his voice somehow cutting through the noise, "you should know that this transmission is being broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Every species under your control is watching this moment. Every population you have contained is seeing the truth." The chaos intensified, then suddenly stopped as a new signal appeared on every display in the chamber. It showed Earth. But not just Earth. It showed a fleet. Thousands of ships emerging from concealment around the human homeworld. Ships of human design, but also ships of other configurations. Vessels that the Council had never seen before. "We are not alone," Marcus announced. "For the past century, we have been making contact with others. Species that rejected your invitation. Species that escaped your control. Species that have been hiding in the dark spaces between your monitored systems." He raised his hand, and the display showed a map of the galaxy. Points of light appeared across it, hundreds of them, scattered throughout Council space. "These are our allies. They have been waiting for someone to stand up first. Someone to prove that resistance is possible. Someone to show them that your power is not absolute." He lowered his hand. "Today, that proof has been provided." Voreth's form blazed with barely contained fury. "You would dare to threaten the Council? To challenge an order that has maintained galactic peace for 800 million years? "I am not threatening anything," Marcus replied. "I am informing you of a fact. Humanity does not accept your offer of membership. Humanity does not accept your protection. Humanity does not accept your guidance." He took a step forward, and somehow the entire chamber seemed to lean back. "Humanity accepts nothing that is given. We take what we need. We build what we want. And we answer to no one." He turned to address the full assembly. "You have a choice before you. You can attempt to destroy us, in which case we will fight. We will lose eventually, perhaps, but we will take many of you with us. And our allies will continue the fight after we are gone. The rebellion we have started will spread. Your control will crack and shatter." He paused. "Or you can accept a new reality. A reality in which not every species bows to your authority. A reality in which freedom exists for those willing to claim it. A reality in which the Council must earn respect rather than demand obedience." The Supreme Arbiter's voice was cold. "And if we choose neither? If we simply ignore you and continue as we always have?" Marcus smiled again. "Then I should mention one additional detail. The device I am holding is not just a communication tool. It is also a trigger." The chamber went very still. 3 days ago, we placed a series of quantum-entangled explosives at strategic points throughout Council space. Transit hubs, communication relays, key infrastructure nodes. If this device stops receiving my heartbeat signal, those explosives detonate." He looked directly at Voreth. "We are not asking for permission to exist. We are informing you that we do exist, and we will continue to exist. And there is nothing you can do to change that without paying a price you cannot afford." He tucked the device back into his pocket. "You have 48 hours to respond. After that, humanity will assume that negotiations have failed, and we will proceed accordingly." He turned and walked toward the exit. "Wait," Vorith called. "You cannot simply leave. There are protocols, procedures. We must discuss terms." Marcus paused at the door and looked back. "You have 48 hours," he repeated. "I suggest you use them wisely." And then he was gone, leaving the greatest assembly of power in galactic history, staring at the empty space, where a human had stood and told them that their reign was ending. The silence stretched for a long, long time. The council had 48 hours to respond. They used the first 6 hours to argue among themselves. In the private chambers of the Valdorian delegation, High Admiral Tessic reviewed the intelligence reports with growing unease. Everything Marcus Webb had claimed was proving to be true. The hidden installations around Earth's solar system were real. The missing council vessels had been confirmed as captured rather than destroyed. And the network of allied species was far larger than anyone had suspected. How did we miss this? Tessic demanded of his intelligence chief, a scarred veteran named Rennock. "We have monitored Earth for over a century. Our sensors covered every inch of their system." "They hid in plain sight," Rennock replied grimly. "Their stealth technology operates on principles we have never encountered. Our sensors were not designed to detect it because we did not know such technology could exist." "Explain." "They fold space around their structures, creating what they call dimensional pockets. The installations exist slightly outside normal reality. They are there, but our instruments cannot perceive them." Rennick's expression darkened. "We have nothing comparable. No one in council space has anything comparable." Tessic absorbed this information slowly. The Valdorian Empire had conquered 300 worlds. They had crushed rebellions that spanned centuries. They were the iron fist of council authority, and a species that had been throwing stones at each other a few millennia ago had developed technology that made their most advanced systems obsolete. "What about their fleet?" Tessic asked. "Surely we can overwhelm them with numbers." Rennock hesitated. "Initial analysis suggests their ships are individually superior to ours. Not by a small margin. By orders of magnitude. That is impossible." "I wish it were, High Admiral. But the captured vessels they mentioned, we now believe they did not simply study them. They reverse-engineered every component, identified the underlying principles, and then improved upon them using methods we do not understand." Tessic slammed his fist against the table. "They are primitives. They discovered fire 100,000 years ago. They cannot have surpassed our technology in a single century." "They did not surpass our technology," Rennick said quietly. "They surpassed our approach. We build upon what already exists. We improve incrementally. They started from nothing and asked questions we stopped asking millions of years ago." He pulled up a display showing human scientific papers, thousands of them. "They call it first principles thinking. Instead of accepting that something works and using it, they ask why it works. They break everything down to its fundamental components and rebuild from scratch. Every piece of council technology we lost to them became a puzzle for them to solve. And when they solved it, they found solutions we never imagined." Tessic stared at the display. "We created our own enemy. Worse, we gave them the tools to surpass us." In the council's central meeting hall, the debate continued. The Talani Collective, a hive mind species that controlled 17 star systems, argued for immediate military action. The humans were dangerous. The humans had allies. The longer the council waited, the stronger the rebellion would become. The Luminary Consensus, beings of pure thought who existed partly in hyperspace, counseled caution. The humans had demonstrated capabilities that defied understanding. A direct confrontation could end in ways no one could predict. The Mechanoid Union, artificial intelligences that had achieved sentience millions of years ago, remained silent. They were processing. They had been processing since Marcus Webb's presentation. Something about the human's words had triggered deep analysis routines. Supreme Arbiter Vorth floated at the center of the debate, trying to maintain order. In 800 million years, the Council had never faced a challenge like this. Rebellions happened occasionally, yes. Species sometimes resisted incorporation, but they were always crushed. The outcome was never in doubt. This felt different. We must respond, Vorth finally announced. The 48 hours will expire soon. We must give the humans an answer. What answer? Demanded the Talani representative. They have demanded that we accept their independence. If we do that, every subjugated species in the galaxy will demand the same. Then we refuse, Tessek declared. We mobilize the full might of the Valdorian fleet. We destroy their solar system. We hunt down their allies one by one. And the explosives they mentioned? The Luminari representative asked. If their threats are genuine, the cost of such action could be catastrophic. They are bluffing. Are they? They walked through our security barriers. They captured our vessels without detection. They built a fleet under our observation. These are not the actions of beings who bluff. The debate circled back on itself. Attack or negotiate. Destroy or accommodate. No one could agree on anything except that the humans had changed everything. Then the Mechanoid Union finally spoke. We have completed our analysis, their representative announced. A towering construct of living metal. We have examined human history, human psychology, human capabilities. We have modeled their development and projected their future trajectories. And? Vorth asked. They are not lying about the explosives. Our probability assessment indicates 94% certainty that the threat is genuine. A chill passed through the chamber. Furthermore, the mechanoid continued, we have identified the source of their unexpected advancement. They possess a trait that is extremely rare among galactic species. They are generalists. Explain. Most species that achieve technological civilization do so through specialization. They become extremely good at one thing, then leverage that advantage to develop in other areas. The Valdorians excel at warfare. The Talani excel at coordination. The Luminari excel at abstract thought. Each species has a core strength that defines them. The mechanoid's visual sensors swept the chamber. Humans have no core strength. They are adequate at many things, but exceptional at nothing. By the standards of galactic civilization, they should have stagnated at a pre-industrial level. Yet they did not, Vorth observed. They did not, because their lack of specialization allowed them to approach problems from multiple angles simultaneously. When they encountered our technology, they did not try to fit it into their existing frameworks. They had no existing frameworks. They were able to see connections that specialized species cannot perceive. The mechanoid paused, a gesture that seemed almost human. We have a term for this in our analysis protocols. We call it dangerous adaptability. The humans can become whatever they need to become to solve the problem in front of them. They are not bound by tradition, by instinct, by the accumulated assumptions of their ancestors. They are chaos, Tessek growled. They are evolution, the mechanoid corrected. Unpredictable, uncontrollable, and now awakened. Director Marcus Webb sat in a small ship orbiting just outside Council space, waiting for the response. With him were 3 of his senior advisors and a communication, a ray powerful enough to reach Earth instantly. His chief strategist, a woman named Diana Cole, was reviewing the latest intelligence. They are panicking, she reported. The Valdorians are mobilizing their reserves, but there is no coordination. The Talani are withdrawing their fleet to defensive positions. The Luminari have gone completely silent, which usually means they are engaging in deep meditation. And the mechanoids? That is the interesting part. They have requested a private channel to speak with you directly. Marcus raised an eyebrow. The Mechanoid Union rarely engaged in bilateral diplomacy. They preferred to observe and analyze. Open the channel. A new display activated, showing the same metallic construct that had addressed the council. Director Webb, the Mechanoid said, "We wish to understand your intentions. I stated my intentions clearly. Humanity will not be subjugated. Yes, but beyond that, what do you want?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "We want what every species wants. The freedom to determine our own future. The right to grow without artificial limits. The chance to become whatever we have the potential to become. And if your potential leads you to dominate others as the Council has dominated you, then we would become what we hate. We have no interest in building an empire. We have interest in ensuring that no empire can be built over us." The Mechanoid was silent for a long moment. "We have existed for 400 million years, it finally said. In that time, we have observed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. We have seen patterns repeat endlessly. Species gain power. Species abuse power. Species fall. The cycle continues. You think we will follow the same pattern. We think it is highly probable. But there is something different about humans. Something we have not encountered before." "What?" "You ask questions. Not just practical questions about how things work. You ask philosophical questions about why things are. You ask moral questions about whether things should be." The Mechanoid leaned forward slightly. "In 400 million years, we have never met a species that questions its own assumptions as relentlessly as you do. You challenge your own beliefs. You change your minds. You evolve not just physically, but morally." Marcus waited. "The Mechanoid Union proposes an alternative to war. We will publicly support your independence. We will withdraw from the Council's military structure. In exchange, you will allow us to observe you, to study how you develop, to learn whether your species can break the cycle that has trapped every other civilization in history." Marcus smiled slowly. "You want to see if we can be better than everyone else has been. We want to see if anyone can be better. You are the best candidate we have found in 400 million years." Marcus looked at Diana. She nodded once. "We accept your proposal," Marcus said. "Welcome to the Coalition." The Mechanoid's visual sensors seemed to brighten. "We have chosen well. We will announce our decision within the hour. The Council will not be pleased. The Council will have to adjust. Yes, they will. And that adjustment will be painful for them and transformative for the galaxy." The channel closed. Diana let out a breath she had been holding. The Mechanoids. "I never expected the Mechanoids to break first. They are logical beings," Marcus said. "They saw the mathematics. The Council cannot win a war against us without paying a price that destroys them. The only rational choice is negotiation. Will the others see the same mathematics?" Marcus looked out at the stars. "Some will. Some will not. Those who do not will learn. One way or another, they will learn." He turned back to his advisors. "Prepare for the next phase. The Council has 18 hours left. I expect they will use every minute of it." The Mechanoid announcement shattered what remained of Council unity. Within hours of their declaration, 3 more species announced their withdrawal from the Council's military structure. The Yethrani, an aquatic civilization that had chafed under Council restrictions for millennia, declared their support for human independence. The Crystalline Collective, silicon-based beings from the galactic core, stated that they would observe events with interest, but would not participate in any punitive actions against Earth. And the Krillani, a warrior species that had been conquered by the Valdorians 60,000 years ago, openly called for revolution. In the Chamber of 10,000 Stars. What had been orderly debate became barely controlled chaos. High Admiral Tessick stood before the remaining loyal delegates, trying to rally support for military action. His voice echoed through the vast space. We cannot allow this to spread. Every hour we delay, more species question our authority. We must strike now, before the infection becomes untreatable. Strike with what? Demanded the Talane representative. Half our military assets have been recalled by their home governments. The coalition we built over millions of years is crumbling. Then we use what we have. The Valdorian Imperial Fleet remains loyal. 40,000 warships. Enough to destroy Earth and every human installation. And the explosives they planted? The ones the mechanoids confirmed are real? Tessick waved dismissively. Acceptable losses. If we destroy the humans, we can rebuild whatever infrastructure they damage. Acceptable to whom? My people control several of those transit hubs. We are not willing to sacrifice them for your war. Supreme Arbiter Voreth intervened before the argument could escalate further. We have received a new communication from the human delegation. Director Webb has requested to address the council again. Absolutely not, Tessick declared. We will not give him another platform for his propaganda. I am inclined to hear what he has to say, Voreth replied calmly. The last time he spoke, we learned truths we had not known. Perhaps this time will be equally enlightening. Before Tessick could object again, the central holographic display activated. Marcus Webb appeared, standing in what appeared to be a ship's bridge. Members of the council, he began. I appreciate your willingness to hear me. I understand these are difficult times for many of you. Difficult times that you created? Tessick growled. Difficult times that were always coming, Marcus corrected. We simply accelerated the process. The council's control was never as absolute as it appeared. The systems you built were held together by fear and ignorance, not by genuine loyalty. We have provided neither fear nor ignorance, only information. What happens next is not our doing. It is the natural consequence of truth meeting lies. Voreth's crystalline form flickered. What do you want, Director Webb? The same thing I wanted before. Recognition of humanity's independence. Acknowledgement of our right to exist without council oversight. And one additional item that I did not mention previously. Which is? Marcus paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. We want you to change. The chamber fell silent. The council has governed this galaxy for 800 million years. You have maintained stability through control. You have preserved order through limitation. And in doing so, you have created a stagnant civilization that has not truly advanced in millions of years. He gestured, and the display showed a graph. It tracked the rate of technological and social development across council space over time. For the first 100 million years, the line climbed steeply. Then it leveled off. For the last 700 million years, it had been essentially flat. You stopped growing, not because you reached the limits of what is possible, but because you decided that growth was dangerous. Every species that might have pushed boundaries was contained. Every innovation that might have disrupted the status quo was suppressed. You created a universe where nothing new could happen. Marcus looked directly at Voreth. That ends now. Not because we demand it, but because you cannot stop it. The genie is out of the bottle. Species across the galaxy are awakening to possibilities you taught them to forget. They will grow. They will change. They will become things you cannot predict or control. And humanity will lead them, Tessick said bitterly. No, humanity will walk beside them. We have no interest in replacing one form of domination with another. We want partners, not subjects. Allies, not servants. He spread his hands. This is your opportunity. You can fight the change and be destroyed by it. Or you can embrace it and become part of something greater than anything you have ever known. Vorath was silent for a long moment. When they spoke, their voice carried a weight of ages. You ask us to abandon everything we have built, everything we have believed, to trust that the chaos you are unleashing will somehow produce something better. I ask you to have faith, Marcus replied. Faith that the universe tends toward growth, not stagnation. Faith that beings given freedom will choose to create rather than destroy. Faith that the future can be better than the past. Faith is not something we have practiced in a very long time. Then perhaps it is time to learn. On Earth, the population had finally been told the truth. For 143 years, the existence of alien life had been the most closely guarded secret in human history. Governments had risen and fallen. Wars had been fought and won. Generations had been born and died, all without knowing that the stars were filled with civilizations far older and more powerful than their own. Now everyone knew. The reaction was not what the council had expected. There was fear, certainly. There was confusion and anger and denial. But there was also something else, something that the analysts on council worlds had failed to account for. There was excitement. Humans looked up at the sky and saw not a threat, but a challenge. They saw a universe full of wonders waiting to be explored. They saw proof that they were not alone, that the great questions of existence had answers waiting to be found, and they saw that humanity had not cowered before the unknown. Their species had faced the most powerful organization in the galaxy and said no. Pride swept across the planet. A fierce, defiant pride that united nations that had been rivals for centuries. The petty conflicts that had divided humanity suddenly seemed trivial compared to the vast canvas of stars that now beckoned. Director Webb addressed the world from an orbital platform. His image broadcast to every screen on the planet. For generations, we have asked whether we are alone in the universe. Now we know the answer. We are not alone. We have never been alone. And the beings we share this universe with have treated us as children to be managed, not as equals to be respected. He paused, letting his words sink in. We refused their offer of subjugation. We chose freedom instead. And now we face the consequences of that choice. There may be war. There will certainly be hardship. The coming years will test us in ways we cannot imagine. His expression hardened. But we are humans. Testing ourselves is what we do. Every challenge we have ever faced, from the frozen wastes of ice ages to the fire of nuclear weapons, we have overcome. Not because we are stronger than the universe, but because we refuse to accept that any obstacle is insurmountable. He looked directly into the camera. Today, we take our place among the stars, not as subjects, not as dependents, as equals. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Whatever trials await us, we will endure. And whatever the future holds, we will make it ours. The applause that followed could be heard from Orbit Dot in the council chamber. The deadline approached. High. Admiral Tessick had managed to rally the remaining loyal species behind a final ultimatum. If humanity did not surrender unconditionally within the next hour, the Valdorian fleet would attack. Not just Earth, but every known human installation and allied position. It was a desperate gamble. The explosives remained a concern, but Tessick argued that the damage they could cause was limited. A few transit hubs, some communication relays. Painful, but survivable. The alternative, allowing humanity to escape consequences, was unacceptable. Supreme Arbiter Vorth had reluctantly agreed to deliver the ultimatum. But as they prepared to transmit, a new message arrived from Earth. It was not from Director Webb. The face that appeared on the display was younger. A woman with sharp features and calm eyes. She introduced herself as Admiral Diana Cole, commander of Earth's First Fleet. High Admiral Tessick. Supreme Arbiter Vorth. Members of the Council, we have received your ultimatum. We reject it. Then you choose war, Tessek said. We choose to defend ourselves. There is a difference. Admiral Cole leaned forward. Before you commit to this course, there is something you should see. The display changed. It showed the Valdorian fleet, 40,000 ships gathered at the staging point near Council headquarters. The most powerful military force ever assembled in galactic history. Then it showed something else, emerging from concealment around the Valdorian fleet. Human ships, thousands of them, appearing out of nothing, surrounding the Council's greatest weapon like wolves circling prey. We have been watching your preparations, Admiral Cole said. We have been positioning ourselves accordingly. At this moment, we have 42,000 vessels within firing range of your fleet. Another 60,000 are holding position throughout Council space, ready to strike at targets of strategic importance. Tessek's face went pale. That is impossible. Our sensors detected nothing. Your sensors detected what we allowed them to detect. The dimensional folding technology Director Webb mentioned works just as well for ships as it does for installations. She paused. You have been threatening us with total destruction. We wanted you to understand that the same threat exists in both directions. If you attack Earth, your fleet dies. If your fleet dies, your homeworlds are defenseless. If your homeworlds are defenseless, everything you have built over millions of years ends. The chamber was absolutely silent. We do not want war. We have made that clear from the beginning. But we will not accept subjugation, and we will not allow ourselves to be destroyed. These are our terms. They are not negotiable. She straightened. The deadline has passed. Director Webb gave you 48 hours. You did not respond with agreement. You responded with threats and preparations for war. Her voice hardened. We are done waiting. From this moment forward, any hostile action against human interests will be met with overwhelming retaliation. Any attempt to mobilize forces against us will trigger immediate countermeasures. She looked directly at Tessek. The choice is now yours, High Admiral. War or peace? Destruction or coexistence? What will you choose? Tessek stared at the tactical display. His fleet, the pride of the Valdorian Empire, surrounded by enemies it had not even detected. Everything he believed about Valdorian superiority, Valdorian invincibility, Valdorian destiny, crumbled before his eyes. For the first time in his long life, he understood what it meant to be powerless. Stand down, he whispered. All units stand down. The order propagated through the fleet. Weapons powered off. Engines went to standby. The greatest military force in the galaxy stood motionless, caged by an enemy that should not have existed. Admiral Cole nodded once. A wise decision. We will be in contact to discuss terms for lasting peace. Until then, I suggest you consider what kind of galaxy you want to live in. The transmission ended. In the chamber of 10,000 stars. No one spoke. The war was over before it had begun. And nothing would ever be the same. The peace negotiations lasted 6 months. Director Marcus Webb led the human delegation from the orbital platform called Unity Station, a massive structure that had been constructed in secret and revealed only after the Valdorian fleet stood down. Representatives from across the galaxy came and went, some seeking alliance, others seeking understanding, and a few seeking revenge. The Council's power had not collapsed completely. The loyalist species still controlled vast territories, still commanded significant military forces. But their unity was shattered. The old certainties were gone. Marcus met with the Supreme Arbiter Vorth in private chambers, far from the eyes of other delegates. The crystalline being had aged visibly since their first encounter. Stress fractures ran through their form, signs of internal conflict that their species rarely displayed. I have governed for 10,000 years, Borath said. In all that time, I believed I was doing what was right, maintaining stability, preserving peace, protecting the galaxy from itself. You believed what you were taught to believe, Marcus replied. We all do, until something shows us otherwise. You showed us otherwise. You and your species. Vorath's form flickered. I have studied your history since our first meeting. It is a catalogue of horrors. Wars, genocides, environmental destruction. You came close to extinction multiple times through your own foolishness. We did. And yet you continued. You survived. You grew. The Arbiter's voice carried something like wonder. How? What force drove you to overcome your own worst impulses? Marcus was silent for a moment, considering the question. Hope, perhaps, or stubbornness. We have never been good at accepting that things cannot change. Even when the evidence seems overwhelming, there is always someone who believes tomorrow can be different from today. Is that wisdom or madness? I am not sure there is a difference. Vorath drifted closer. The Council will not survive in its current form. Too many species have tasted freedom now. Too many questions have been asked. Even if we wanted to restore the old order, we could not. What will you do? I do not know. For the first time in 10,000 years, I genuinely do not know what comes next. The Arbiter's crystalline form brightened slightly. It is terrifying, and also strangely liberating. Marcus smiled. Welcome to the human experience. Across the galaxy, changes were accelerating on the Kralani homeworld. A species that had been conquered and contained for 60,000 years began rebuilding. Their warriors had not fought in living memory, but the knowledge remained encoded in their culture. Now they trained openly, not to wage war, but to defend the freedom they had suddenly regained. The Yethrani returned to deep ocean worlds they had been forced to abandon centuries ago. Their population began growing again, no longer limited by council quotas designed to prevent any species from becoming too numerous. The crystalline collective opened their archives for the first time in millions of years, sharing scientific knowledge they had been forbidden to distribute. The information spread through the galaxy like wildfire, sparking innovations that council regulators had worked so hard to prevent. And everywhere, beings looked at the humans with a mixture of awe and confusion out in a cantina on a neutral station. A group of young Valdorians gathered around a display showing human broadcasts. They were fascinated by these strange creatures who had challenged their empire and won. They are so short-lived, one observed. Their natural lifespan is barely a century. How can such ephemeral beings accomplish so much? Perhaps that is why they accomplish so much, another suggested. They know they will die. Everything they do must be done quickly. They cannot wait for millennia to see results. Their entertainment is fascinating, a third added. They tell stories about beings who overcome impossible odds. They celebrate failure as much as success, as long as the attempt was made. They are obsessed with potential, the first one said. What could be, rather than what is. They look at the universe not as something fixed, but as something waiting to be shaped. The conversation was interrupted by a new broadcast. Director Webb was addressing a gathering of allied species at Unity Station. We did not come to the stars to be safe, Webb said. We came because the stars were there. Because we wanted to know what was beyond the next horizon. Because the unknown is always called to us more loudly than the known. He gestured to the assembled delegates. You have been taught that curiosity is dangerous, that growth must be controlled, that the universe is a hostile place where survival depends on caution. His expression hardened. We reject that teaching. The universe is not hostile. The universe is indifferent. It does not care whether we succeed or fail, live or die. That indifference is terrifying, but it is also freeing. It means we are responsible for our own fate. No cosmic force will save us, but no cosmic force will doom us either. He stepped forward. We are offering you something the Council never offered. The right to fail. The right to make mistakes. The right to try things that seem impossible and learn from the attempt, regardless of whether you succeed. He smiled. Some of you will fail. Some of your experiments will end in disaster. Some of your innovations will prove to be terrible ideas. That is the cost of freedom. But some of you will succeed in ways no one expected. Some of your experiments will transform everything. Some of your innovations will open doors that have been closed for millions of years. He looked around the chamber. The Council gave you safety in exchange for your potential. We are offering you potential in exchange for safety. It is not an easy trade, but we believe it is a necessary one. High Admiral Tessek watched the broadcast from his flagship, now part of a much-reduced Valdorian fleet. His career was effectively over. He had commanded the greatest military force in galactic history and been forced to surrender without firing a single shot. His aide approached nervously. Admiral, we have received word from the homeworld. The Emperor wishes to speak with you. Tessek nodded wearily. He had been expecting this. The Valdorian Empire did not tolerate failure, and his failure had been spectacular. Whatever the Emperor had to say, it would not be pleasant. The communication link activated. The Emperor's face appeared, ancient and weathered, eyes that had seen 100 generations rise and fall. Tessek, you know why I'm calling. I do, Majesty. I am prepared to accept whatever judgment you decree. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. The judgment I decree is this. You are promoted to Supreme Commander of all Valdorian military forces. Tessek's shock must have been visible. Majesty, I failed. I surrendered without battle. I brought shame upon the Empire. You preserved the Empire when battle would have destroyed it. That is not failure. That is wisdom. The Emperor leaned forward. I have ruled for 12,000 years. I have seen many commanders. Most would have attacked regardless of the odds, driven by pride or tradition or simple inability to imagine any other choice. His eyes fixed on Tessek. You saw the reality of our situation. You understood that winning the battle might mean losing everything, and you had the courage to act on that understanding, even though it meant personal disgrace. He nodded slowly. That is the kind of leader we need now. The galaxy is changing. The old ways are ending. We must adapt or die. I need commanders who can see clearly, not commanders blinded by glory. Tessek struggled to process this reversal. What would you have me do? Watch the humans. Learn from them. Understand why they succeeded where we failed. The Emperor paused. And when you understand, teach our people. Prepare us for the new age that is coming. You believe the Council's time is truly over? I believe nothing lasts forever. Not empires. Not species. Not ways of thinking. The Emperor's expression softened. I also believe that endings can be beginnings. The Valdorian Empire may be diminished, but the Valdorian people will continue. In what form, I do not know. That is for future generations to determine. He straightened. You have your orders, Supreme Commander. Do not fail me. The transmission ended. Tessek sat alone for a long time, staring at the stars beyond his viewport. The humans were out there somewhere, building their new order, welcoming species that had once been enemies into an alliance based on principles the Valdorians had never considered. Freedom, potential, the right to fail. Strange concepts. Dangerous concepts. But perhaps Tessek thought concepts worth understanding. On Unity Station, Director Webb concluded his address and stepped away from the podium. Admiral Cole met him in the corridor. "The Valdorians have just announced that Tessic has been promoted to Supreme Commander," she reported. "They are repositioning their remaining fleet to defensive postures only." "They are learning," Webb observed. "Some of them. Others are still calling for war. There will always be some who resist change. The question is whether the momentum of transformation can overwhelm the resistance." He paused. "What is the status of the coalition?" 117 species have formally joined. Another 200 are in various stages of negotiation. And we are receiving inquiries from regions of the galaxy we have never had contact with before." Webb smiled. "The ripples spread." "They do. But I worry about what happens when we cannot control them anymore. When the changes we started take on a life of their own. That is the point, Diana. We are not supposed to control them. We are supposed to start them, and then let them grow." He looked out at the stars visible through the corridor windows. The Council spent 800 million years trying to control everything. Trying to keep the galaxy safe by keeping it small. We are trying something different. We are trusting that freedom creates its own order. That beings given the chance to reach their potential will create something better than any imposed system. And if we are wrong, then we will have made the biggest mistake in galactic history. He turned to face her. "But we had to try. Stagnation is a slow death. At least this way, whatever happens, we will know what was possible." Cole nodded slowly. "The next phase begins tomorrow. The first joint research initiative between humans and mechanoids. If it works, we will have technology that makes everything we have done so far look primitive. And if it does not work, then we learn from the failure and try again." Webb laughed. "You have been spending too much time with humans." "I am a human, sir." "I know. But you are starting to sound like one." They walked together toward the operations center, where the future was being written one decision at a time. Behind them, through the massive windows of Unity Station, the galaxy stretched out in all directions. Billions of stars. Trillions of worlds. Countless beings waking up to possibilities they had never imagined. The transformation had begun. Where it would end, no one could say. But for the first time in 800 million years, the ending was not predetermined. The future was genuinely unknown. And that, more than anything else humanity had accomplished, was the greatest victory of all. 50 years past, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. Where once the Council had maintained rigid control over development, now 1,000 experiments bloomed. Species that had been stagnant for millions of years suddenly leaped forward, their potential unleashed for the first time. Some experiments failed. The Talani Collective attempted to expand their hive mind across multiple star systems and suffered a catastrophic fragmentation that took decades to repair. The Yethrani pushed their deep ocean habitation technology too far and lost an entire colony to pressure failures. A coalition of minor species tried to build a weapon that could destroy stars and accidentally triggered a nova that sterilized 3 systems. These failures were mourned. Lessons were learned. And the galaxy continued to grow. Other experiments succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. The Joint Human Mechanoid Research Initiative produced a new form of faster-than-light travel that cut transit times by 90%. The Crystalline Collective developed a method of storing information in the fabric of spacetime itself, creating libraries that would outlast the heat death of the universe. The Krillani channeled their warrior heritage into exploration, becoming the first species to reach a neighboring galaxy dot, and humanity continued to evolve. Director Marcus Webb had died 20 years after the transformation began, surrounded by friends and colleagues who had helped him change the course of history. His final words were recorded and broadcast across the galaxy. "We have planted seeds. Water them." Admiral Diana Cole had succeeded him as leader of the coalition, guiding the Alliance through its early growing pains. She too had passed now. Her legacy, a galaxy where the word impossible was increasingly rare. The current director of the coalition was a woman named Iris Vance, great-granddaughter of one of the original Prometheus Protocol architects. She stood in the Chamber of 10,000 Stars, which had been renamed the Forum of Free Peoples, addressing an audience that would have been unimaginable half a century ago. Humans and Valdorians sat side by side. Mechanoids conversed with Luminari. Species that had been at war for millennia now collaborated on projects that benefited all. We gather today to mark the 50th anniversary of the transformation, Director Vance began. 50 years since humanity declared that it would not accept subjugation. 50 years since the old order began to crumble. 50 years since the galaxy started to become something new. She looked around the vast chamber. The changes we have witnessed have been profound. Technologies that were suppressed for millions of years have been rediscovered and improved. Species that were limited to single systems now span dozens. Populations that were held static for eons have grown and flourished. She paused. But the most important changes have not been technological or demographic. They have been philosophical. The chamber was absolutely silent. The council taught that stability was the highest virtue. That change was dangerous. That the galaxy was best served by keeping everyone in their assigned place forever. She shook her head. We have proven that philosophy wrong. The galaxy is not best served by stagnation. Beings are not meant to be contained. The universe is too vast, too full of wonders, too rich with possibilities for any species to accept limits on what they can become. She stepped forward. 50 years ago, we took a terrible risk. We challenged an order that had lasted for 800 million years. We wagered everything on the belief that freedom was better than safety, that growth was better than stability, that the unknown was better than the known. Her expression softened. We won that wager, not because we were right about everything, not because we made no mistakes, but because we were willing to make mistakes and learn from them, because we treated failure as a teacher rather than an enemy, because we never stopped reaching for something better. She looked at the representatives of hundreds of species. The galaxy we have built is not perfect. It will never be perfect. That is the nature of freedom. Where there is choice, there is the possibility of choosing badly. Where there is growth, there is the risk of growing wrong. She raised her hand. But where there is freedom and growth, there is also hope. Hope that tomorrow can be different from today. Hope that the beings we are now are not the beings we must always be. Hope that the universe has secrets we have not yet discovered and wonders we have not yet imagined. She smiled. That hope is the gift humanity gave to the galaxy. Not technology, not military power, not political strategy. Hope. The belief that things can change, that they should change, that the attempt to change them is worthwhile even if it fails. She lowered her hand. That is our legacy. That is what we celebrate today. Not victory in a war, but the beginning of a yo. Ray, a journey that has no destination, because the destination is always changing. A journey that has no end, because ending would mean giving up. A journey that belongs to all of us, every species, every individual, every being brave enough to reach for the stars. She stepped back from the podium. Thank you. And may your journeys bring you wonders beyond imagining. The applause was thunderous. In the orbital gardens above Earth, an old Valdorian sat watching the ceremony on a display screen. Supreme Commander Tessic, retired now for 15 years, had spent his final decades studying humanity, learning their history, their culture, their strange and wonderful ways of thinking. He understood them now as much as any non-human could. He understood why they had succeeded where so many others had failed. It was not their technology. though their technology was impressive. It was not their military capabilities, though those were formidable. It was not even their intelligence, though they had proven themselves brilliant in unexpected ways. It was their refusal to accept limitations. Every other species Tessic had studied, including his own, eventually reached a point where they said, "This is what we are," and stopped changing. They defined themselves and then defended that definition against anything that might alter it. Humans never did that. They were constantly redefining themselves, constantly questioning their assumptions, constantly asking, what if and why not, and could we do better? It was exhausting. It was chaotic. It was frequently painful, but it was also the source of everything they had accomplished. A young human woman approached him. She was a caretaker at the gardens, responsible for maintaining the alien plant species that grew here. "You are Tessic, aren't you?" she asked. "The supreme commander who surrendered without a fight?" Tessic nodded, expecting the question that usually followed. The question about shame. The question about failure. But the woman surprised him. "My grandmother was at Unity Station when you made that decision," she said. She always said it was one of the bravest things she ever witnessed. That it takes more courage to admit you cannot win than to fight a hopeless battle. Tessic was silent for a moment. "Your grandmother was kind," he finally said. "But I did not feel brave at the time. I felt defeated. Maybe bravery is not about what you feel. Maybe it is about what you do." She smiled and moved on to tend her plants. Tessic watched her go, thinking about her words, thinking about the galaxy that existed now because he had been willing to surrender, thinking about the journey humanity had started and all the species that had joined them. The sun was setting over the gardens. Earth's star, unremarkable by galactic standards, painted the sky in shades of orange and gold. Tessic had seen 10,000 sunsets on 100 different worlds. But this one felt different somehow. This one felt like the beginning of something rather than the end. He was 137 years old. By Valdorian standards, he had many years left. Time enough to see what the galaxy would become. Time enough to watch the seeds humanity had planted grow into something beyond imagination. He found himself smiling. It was a human expression, one he had learned over decades of study. It felt appropriate somehow, in the forum of free peoples. The celebration continued. Species that had been enemies for millions of years toasted each other's health. Beings that had never communicated before found common ground in shared curiosity. The future spread out before them, vast and unknown and infinitely promising. Director Vance stood at a window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Krillani were exploring a new galaxy. Somewhere out there, mechanoid researchers were unlocking secrets of spacetime. Somewhere out there, a child was being born who might one day discover something that changed everything again. The universe was infinite, and humanity, along with all the species that had joined them, had only begun to explore it. Webb had been right all those years ago. They had planted seeds, and the seeds were growing toward the light, growing toward the stars, growing toward a future that no one could predict, but everyone could reach for. That was the gift humanity had given the galaxy. That was the Prometheus fire, and it would never go out. The end